We're live. All right, Len, what are we talking about today?
We can talk about the latest Lean Publishing Daily email newsletter that went out today. It's for anyone interested in these. If you go to our homepage right now, you'll find a link and a little banner relatively near the top where you can sign up for these newsletters. When you buy a Leanpub book, including free ones, you'll also get a prompt to kind of sign up for these daily newsletters. The daily newsletters have great deals in them on ebooks and courses, and they also have some interesting content. This week, the main thing we wanted to do was we recently published a kind of batch of about 12 really great online courses by best-selling Leanpub authors. So what this did was take something that was in book format, create an online course from it, which has at the end of every lesson, which is the sort of course version of a chapter, there are professionally sort of created quizzes. And there are exercises that you can take throughout. The exercises aren't graded, the quizzes aren't graded. And at the end, if you pass all the quizzes successfully, you'll get a PDF certificate proving what you've done. We're really excited about this. We've had our courses kind of part of the Leanpub platform for a long time. But we're really excited to buy these courses because we're to us, they're kind of like proving the point that like a great nonfiction book, particularly a programming book like this one, can be turned into a great online course. Why make an online course? Well, an interesting thing about a course is that it has the quizzes are kind of like a self-challenge. You can take them at your own pace, by the way. There's no timing or anything like that. And you can retake them. You get multiple attempts. But the idea is that, when you read a chapter in a book, you might be very confident that you've learned everything. But if you take a quiz at the end, you've proven to yourself that you've done it. And also a course is kind of much more, as we always like to say when we talk about these things, if you've got a professional development budget or your kind of boss or team leader wants you to learn something, taking an online course is often a much better option than, buying a book.
And the flip side of this is if you are a team leader or boss and you want your employees to read something, buying the course for them is a way of setting it up so that, you can sort of establish, hey, look, not only do I expect you to read this, I expect you to learn it. And I expect you to go get a certificate to prove to yourself that you learned it and prove to me that you at least passed the quizzes, did well enough in the quizzes. And so it's like, if you're doing this professionally, $179 is a really good price. $89 is a ridiculously good deal. So if you're doing something with Kubernetes professionally and you want to learn Kubernetes, this is a really great way to start. And literally it's $89 with this coupon. It's never going to be cheaper than this. So this is what you want to get. Basically, Nigel Poulton has made some amazing books on Docker and Kubernetes. This is the course version of his Kubernetes book. So we're super excited about this, and we're going to be doing. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, but just a note, if you can actually buy courses for other people, so you can buy them for your team members very easily on Leanpub. It's one of the things that makes us kind of unique. You can buy multiple copies of ebooks and courses and then distribute them using an email address to a person. So that's actually a really cool feature. So you could buy 10 copies at this discounted price right now, and distribute them to your team.
Yeah. So cool. Anyway, I didn't bother updating it. I can here. If you want to buy 10 copies, go in here, type the number 10, exactly. Click out, click update, and then ta-da, and then you just go check out, and then you get codes, and you can do that. So it's really slick, and you can, get your team learning. Besides that, so we have the newsletter. One thing that I'm going to start doing. So one thing that I'm bad at is if I feel I've explained something, I don't explain it as much as I should. Or tell the same stories as much as I should. And so one thing I haven't done that very much is tell some of the sort of origin stories of Leanpub and connect them to why we're doing certain things now and what we're doing. So I'm going to do that a bit today. But before we get into that, let's just go through the newsletter. So that in case you're like, I've heard you tell all this stuff before, Peter, you get bored, then you can sleep. Top 5 book deals. Len, anything in here? Hey, Gregor, that's cool. Platform strategy. If you don't have this book yet and you're a software architect, why don't you buy it? Really, It's Gregor. So, and also we have this new thing like translate, well, blah translations available now. If a book has translations, you can just click that and find out. So if you're a software architect and you speak French, then buy this one. And yeah, sorry, back to the newsletter. Rails 8 Way. Again, if you use Rails and you don't have this book, you need this book. It's that simple. And holy cow, you'll never get like, I mean, it's a good price at $49 at $16.80. Like if you don't have this book, buy it. There. I don't have to sell it more than that. And oh, hey, this is cool. So Ready is a book that this book was the book that won our Global Author Max giveaway that we were hyping in September. We're currently working on it. We're not done it yet. So this is going to be a course, speaking of courses, and it's also going to be on Amazon, yada, yada, yada. But, so we're currently doing some stuff to make this a course and put it on Amazon, et cetera, as part of our Global Author Max package that these guys won in the giveaway. But like, even if you plan to buy the course later, spend the extra $12.50 and buy the book and read it now. I mean, it's $12.50, right? So if you're doing Scrum and you're like, hey, I wish I was doing a bit more planning up front, but I still want to be agile, this is the book for you. Get it, read it, have a think. I mean, actually, we have lots of wonderful books about Scrum. The Fixing Your Scrum course is also a really good thing to get that we haven't talked about today. I'm not sure if it's in the deal or not. I don't think we have a coupon on it today, but Fixing Your Scrum. There is a coupon for this in our monthly sale, right?
Yes.
Okay, so if you're not on our monthly sale, what you need to do is go to our homepage and click here and subscribe to our newsletters, Leanpub monthly sale, and as well as the daily, obviously, which you want to be on, and the weekly sale. At least get the monthly, because then if you get too much email, get one email from us a month, put your email in and your name. And this basically get our newsletters, at least our monthly, but the daily is really good too, and so is the weekly. But the Fixing Your Scrum course is like, we have a whole bunch of these courses, as I was saying, that are all out now, and they all have really good prices in these coupons. So you should subscribe to that. Is there anything left in the daily that we should highlight?
One thing I would say is interesting, that launch video with Besa. It's sort of like, there's one of the great things about Leanpub is you get these sort of very professional, very smart professional programmers who have learned a lot of lessons throughout their careers and want to teach them to people. So you get great books. And this is like, from an IT consultant's perspective, but like, there's a lot of, if you're finding yourself in like kind of a transitional phase, or you want to transition from one kind of phase of your career to another, and you're in the kind of IT world, there will probably be a book by someone who's gone through it before on Leanpub, very smart, has taken the time to write something thoughtful about someone in your situation, and what it's like, including interview books like Pat Qua's old Talking with Team Leads, if I'm getting the title correctly, talking with technical team. I don't know. It's and if you scroll down a bit further, you'll see the Jonathan Crossland one. That's kind of like a similar one. That's for the podcast. Jonathan has a very interesting career path and story. So if you're interested in learning about his journey and then his Software Developers Handbook, I recommend the podcast. And if you like either the launch video or the podcast video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's a great way to learn about new people from all around the world, writing about all kinds of topics, and not just what they write about, but learning a little bit about their lives. And for what it's worth, at the end of every podcast episode, about how they write.
Right. And if you're willing to watch Len and me talk for 9 minutes on a live stream, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel. Okay, cool. So I want to talk about one thing, speaking of talking about stuff. So basically, I'll stop sharing my screen for a second. There we go. Okay, cool. So I'll try this spotlight layout. I'm going to experiment. Here we go. I should do this when we talk back and forth. So, okay. So we've been talking a lot about like, our courses, or just when we're talking about Ready today, we're talking about, hey, we're putting it on Amazon, we're doing this Global Author Max. so why are we doing all the things that we're doing? And so like what I want to do is talk a little bit about the really early days of Leanpub and what we set out to build and why. And by the way, before I go into it, I'll just say, if you're really curious, I wrote a book called Lean Publishing, talking about the sort of, this is like the philosophy behind Leanpub as a book. And you don't have to, like, it's free. You can get the book. You can also just click free to read online. And then the reason I had it up is that since this is, some of this stuff is like 15 years old, remembering the exact dates and stuff is kind of like, even for me, even though I lived it, is a bit tricky. So like, you know, it's literally in here. So I will remove this from the stage and talk about this. Basically, a high level is, and the reason I'm going to talk about this is basically like understanding why we built, like what the situation was that led to Leanpub, and helps you understand why we built all the things that we built, so that, and you can see how everything that we're doing now connects to the original vision for everything, and also connects to the sort of prehistory of Leanpub in terms of what was going on in my life. So basically, way back in the day, in 2006, I was nobody. I was working for a Silicon Valley company remotely from my basement in Maple Ridge, Canada. So like if you're in the Lower Mainland of Vancouver and you're in the cheapest house as far away from Vancouver as you can be, but still being in the Lower Mainland, that's Maple Ridge, and that's where I was in 2006. So I was nobody, had no audience, no one knew who I was. So if you're watching this and you're like, man, I'd like to write a book, but how would anyone find out about my book? I was in that situation in 2006. I was literally nobody, right? I had a young son. I was working remote and just had this great idea. And my great idea was basically like, I'm using a thing called Flex. Flex was like basically a way of writing rich internet applications that ran on the Flash player. The Flash player, if you don't know what it is, once upon a time, before the iPhone came out, people could do sort of interact, like the sort of annoying banners in the web that like were interactive, or games like desktop. If you're old and if you ever played a game called like Desktop Tower Defense, that was a Flash game. And there were lots of these things. And you know, as much as I like use Apple products and, you know, like, I mean, etc., Steve Jobs killed Flash, right? And so like, but the nice thing is now what we can do with Tailwind and JavaScript and stuff lets us basically build the types of things that you could build back in 2004 to 2008 in Flex. And so, but you're running in the browser, so things are better because you're not inside like a little sandboxed thing. But back in 2004, I thought Flex was pretty awesome. And then Rails came out. And it was like, oh, wow. Because my life was, I was a front-end developer, building things in Flex, talking to sort of enterprise Java stuff on the back end. And I was like, wouldn't it be great if we could write Flex on the front end and Rails on the back end? And so I was like, yeah, okay, I'm going to do that. I think that's a great idea. But like, and I could even write some code to make things easier, you know, like unmarshalling and sending data back and forth and blah, 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 like stuff. But I was at a Silicon Valley startup. And so like what I'm talking about here is a startup, but I already was at a startup, and you can't really do a startup while you're at a startup. And so I was like, well, okay, I can't do that. What I could do though is write a book explaining it. And so I did. And so I started writing it. I published in progress because, you know, like, well, for a bunch of reasons, but basically I wanted to get the ideas out there. And then when I finished, I put it on, and so Leanpub didn't exist. And so I was publishing in progress when I was writing in Open Office, and then I switched to Word. But I was writing in Open Office, and then I'd upload it. I'd sell it on Lulu, and then I had a flexiblerails.com/Rumpelstiltskin/security through obscurity.html. And I was like posting updates there. And sorry, I'm sort of a bit scattered on this, but basically like the first week I published, I got 5 sales and realized, okay, I need to actually finish my book. And so then I iterated, kept publishing new versions, putting them at the secret URL. And then when I was done, I had about 1,000 readers around the world, and then I produced a physical book. This is it. Look at this. It's like a phone book, right? It's ridiculous. One of the neat things about it was I built an application like from start to finish in like, and this is one of the sort of, there's a lot of, you'll see a lot of this now. There wasn't that much of it back in 2006. Like, hey, in the entire book, instead of a bunch of little standalone code samples, I wanted to build a real application and iterate on the application. And so the app, so it's like, so literally like if you look at this and you see like, oh, look, there's like new code and deleted code. And like literally lots of it is just diffs, essentially. And a whole bunch of explanation. It's funny. The thing I built was a sort of getting things done style to-do list. Kind of like, anyway, it's about, that's too big a tangent for today. But, so I built this thing. And it's like I iterated, published in progress. And so lots of what Leanpub does is basically the thing that, like when Leanpub launched in 2010, it was like the thing I wish had existed when I wrote my book. Now, when I finished my book, I'd gotten enough traction by publishing in progress. Again, I had about 1,000 readers around the world that made about $16,000 in sales that, I got picked up, I turned down a couple of publishers and then got a real book publisher out of it. And it looks like this. And if you compare them, first of all, this is a giant, I did not know what I was doing. And this was published, by a publisher that was really good. I really liked them. And they did know what they were doing. And so like same book, right? But the one where they know what they're doing is sized appropriately with appropriate fonts and everything. And so if you think about just going from like, hey, I'm publishing in progress and now I'm done. And when I'm done, what do I want? Well, I want it on Amazon, right? I want a print book and I want it everywhere, but in reality, being everywhere doesn't really matter. Being on Amazon is as good as being everywhere, and it's a lot easier. And so Leanpub, now we have our Publish on Amazon service, which is we'll take your book, we'll use our skills and our taste about how physical books should be made, and we'll put it on Amazon for you. So if you're just like, I just want to click a button and have it all done, that's what Publish on Amazon is. And so, but then one of the other really cool things is not only did my book, was it put on Amazon, but the publisher, the book had enough traction and stuff that, hey, there's like translations. So this was really neat. It was like, there's a German translation of my book from back in 2006 or 7 or whenever they did it. And it's like, seeing all the, like, of course, you don't translate like diagrams because then you'd have to reproduce them. So all the diagrams are in English, but all the codes and all the explanations are translated, and the code samples are left alone basically. But it was like super neat, and so I was really happy. Like as an author, seeing your book in print is awesome, but then seeing your book translated is even more awesome. And so like I know from firsthand that like translations are of deep value to an author, just from my own experience having my first book translated. And so I was like, okay, well, in Leanpub we have Translate AI, where you can literally click a button and we'll translate your book into up to 31 languages. Now, my second book, I wrote it with the publisher, and you can read the story about like, basically what went wrong is described in my Lean publishing book. But the short version is about a week after it went live, like literally the ink was still drying. Adobe decided to change the namespace in Flex, and so all my code samples broke. And it was like, oh, rats, that sucks. And ironically, by the way, if you've ever read any of this series, the Hello series of this publisher, I was actually, Rubos, the company, like Rubos is the company that owns and operates Leanpub. I founded Rubos back in 2007, and we started doing things for real in 2008. So Rubos had actually done some work for these guys. And so I knew them. I knew Iliad. And so all of this entire series of books with these cartoons is because of I had a good relationship with them, and so I did the introduction. So this cartoon is kind of like Dilbert for sysadmins, essentially, is what user friendly was. But anyway, so I did the intro and blah blah blah. But anyway, so this what I learned from the second book is basically the dangers of just doing the sort of more ivory tower. I'm going to sit and write the whole thing and then release it when it's done. And again, this publisher, they're really good people. I really like them. They're very well regarded, and I have nothing but positive experiences to say. But the publishing process, like the traditional publishing process, is just, in my opinion, inherently worse than publishing, like self-publishing as you write, getting a real audience of actual people around the world. Because that way, it's not about even so much getting some money up front. It's about making the right book, right? Like publishing in progress helps you get real feedback from real readers. And then the book that you produce is different and better than it would have been if you had not published in progress. And also, let's say you publish in progress and like, well, I don't want to go too much into that. But anyway, the point is it's a better approach to publish in progress, get real feedback. And then when you're done, you can do a big Hollywood launch. Cool. There's nothing stopping you from doing a big launch, even if you were iterating and working in public. And of course, the one nice thing, of course, again, is my second book was also translated, and it's amazing. Like this was into, into Chinese, and so that's why it's so small, right? Is of course like because their information density of a Chinese character is a lot smaller, a lot greater than English words, and so so the idea back again here, it's like, well, look, having this is also wonderful to have as an author. And so it's like, translate AI again. And so basically what I wanted to emphasize is Leanpub, everything we're doing from publish on Amazon to translate AI to our courses, all that is all connected to why Leanpub exists, and that goes all the way back to 2010 in terms of like basically, as an author, this type of stuff is timeless. Like you want to have your book in print, you want to have your book translated, and like it's not just like a thing of because and AI makes it obviously a lot more accessible and a lot cheaper to produce, but the value is there, and the value has always been there, and it's always going to be there. And down the road, obviously, there'll be things like audiobook versions and other kinds of things that'll just inevitably happen from, that AI will make accessible to everyone that, previously took more time and effort and money. But it's all really exciting. I think I'll stop there. So, Len.
Yeah, I guess one interesting thing. I mean, if we want to talk about what's changed since, 2010, one of the things that's changed is that it's not in Leanpub, but like in general, is that it's a lot easier to do things like we're doing right now, to communicate with people. And this has actually sort of transformed the self-publishing world, that you can very easily, like, you have to get used to it. I was sort of nervous about doing live streams the first time I did them. I was nervous about doing, recording video when we started doing that for the podcast. I was nervous about doing the video for the launch videos and stuff like that. And but I bring it up in this context because I was thinking there's a lot of people who was nervous to publish their book in progress. You're nervous to get your book out there early. You're nervous to get your book out there. Like when I talk to people sometimes, and they ask me what's Leanpub and what I do, and a lot of the time, if they're writers, they're often like, "Oh my God, getting it out there,
right,
too so soon." One of the things that's like sort of built into Leanpub is kind of like getting a little bit. One of our sort of like bits of advice is, when should you publish the first version of your book? And it's like when you're still a little bit uncomfortable publishing it. And that actually is a good lesson for all kind of like, if you're writing a book because you want people to read it. If you're writing a nonfiction like the typical kind of Leanpub book, it's because you want people to learn from you that what you have to offer. And that's not going to happen unless you get out there and do.
Yeah, let me jump in about this. Be specific. If it's a computer programming book, if you're writing a computer programming book, I have a very specific way to put this. Will your book save someone 1 or 2 hours of time? If they read your book, will they save a couple hours of talking to ChatGPT and going back and forth, or Googling or whatever, right? Like if someone can just take your book, read, and be like, oh, now I've leveled up, and I'm not just like sort of vibe coding things and I don't know what I'm doing, but I got a nice I've now learned something, and this will save me a couple hours of time. Well, okay, look, if it's a computer programming book, it's priced between like, $10 to $40. If you save a professional a couple hours of time, the book's paid for itself, right? Even if someone's a student and they're working at McDonald's or In-N-Out, right? Like if you save them a couple hours of time, it's probably paid for itself, right? But if you save a developer a couple hours of time, it's of course paid for itself. And so now it's really extreme. if you're writing a computer programming book, once you've written 3 chapters, as long as you have an idea of where you're going, like 2 or 3 chapters, if you have 2 or 3 chapters and a plan, publish, right? Because then it's like a number of things. One, you might realize that you're like you if you actually get readers, then you might realize, oh, you're glossing over some stuff that you should go deeper into, or oh, maybe you're going so deep that you might want to go a bit higher, whatever, right? But like getting actual feedback as soon as you have a few chapters written, publish. If it's a business book or something like that, you might want to write a bit more than a few chapters. But like again, will it be like if you're selling an in progress book and like one thing that many of our authors do, like, one pricing approach, and pricing is not for today, but like one pricing approach is start the first version as cheap as it'll ever be and then raise the price as you go. Right. And so if you're like, hey, I don't know if it's going to be worth it for someone or not, it's like publish it and make it $10 and then see if people like charge a price, be like, hey, look, I think there's value here already and I'm going to keep raising the price as I go. And then that way the number one value for somebody buying your book in progress is they get the ideas first. Not, oh, I got it cheaper. It's like, let's say, for example, there's a new JavaScript framework that comes out, right? Well, whenever that new JavaScript framework just comes out, there's going to be no books on it. So if you're writing an application using that framework, and you write a book about that framework, as soon as you've written a few chapters, you've written the best book in the world on that framework because it's the only one. Because no one's published anything yet, right? So if a new JavaScript framework comes out, start writing a Leanpub book and publish, like literally a week later. Why not, right? Take the 5 or 10 hours of like just iterate, publish in progress as fast as you can, and then work in public. And then what's the gap between where you are then and a finished book? Well, somewhere between 6 months and a year. So in that time period, well, maybe if you go really fast, 3 months, say 3 months to a year from now, you'll have written a full computer programming book about this brand new thing, and it's the best one in the world by virtue of being the only one in the beginning. And then if you're good, you'll get some traction. And then it's like, oh, there's already a Leanpub book about this and people like it and blah, 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 right? So then, that's the canonical way of doing something. Like I wrote the best book in the world about how to use Flex with Ruby on Rails, because it was the only book in the world to use Flex with Ruby on Rails, right? And it's like, imagine pitching that idea. Hi, I'm nobody, right? I work from home. I want to write a book about how to use niche topic A with niche topic B. Are you interested? Like, I didn't even ask any publishers. Why would any of them say yes, right? It's crazy, right? If you think about it, it's like, because the total addressable market Venn diagram would be like, well, you have people who'd be interested in Flex back then. Now it's 0, but people who'd be interested in Flex, people who'd be interested in Rails. And I had this genius idea of take that and then make my market be the intersection, not the union, right? So, I mean, conceptually, you could argue that if you're interested in one of them, you might be interested in, oh, there's this thing. What about blah, blah, right? So, but, so I'm saying I've got a niche, and I'm going to take these 2 niches and combine them, and that's my market right there, right? And so when I did that, so like, again, this is generalizable, right? If you're like, hey, I want to write a book about Remix. Well, there's probably not that many books in the world about Remix. So write a Leanpub book about Remix. But if you're like, hey, I want to write a book about how to use Remix with Ruby on Rails. Well, I guarantee you there's not a single book in the world about that. So if you write that book, you've written the best book in the world about it. And if you don't know what Remix is, it's called React Router 7 now. But anyway, like, so, there's so many niche books that don't exist right now that should exist. And Leanpub is the place to make them. And if you make that book, then you click a button and make a course out of it as well and charge like 5-10 times as much for the course. Sell that, it's October. There's 3 months left in the year. People need to spend their professional development budgets, right? Make an in progress book right now. Get that money now, and then we get your book done before the end of the year, or not, and then get a course. But blah blah blah. All right, I got nothing left. Len?
No, that's I think, I mean, we could talk about all these things forever, but like, that's good, telling the Leanpub story, having it there, and connecting it in the end to very specific sort of action that someone can take, I think is like
Mhm.
a good way, a good place to end. If you want to create a book on Leanpub, go to leanpub.com/create/book. It's that easy to get started. You can write in the browser. And we also have, if you're a programmer and you've been listening to this and you're like, oh, wow, now I really want to write a programming book. We also have a GitHub book writing mode, which you will blow your mind. So check it all out.
And by the way, you can also, if you start in browser, you're literally writing in like our in browser mode isn't like, book writing for dummies. It's like Monaco. It's like the the same experience you have inside VS Code, but in your browser. And so if you're like, hey, I want to start with Leanpub for free and kick the tires, just sign up, create a book in browser mode. You'll feel right at home because it's just the same. Everything works the way it does in VS Code in terms of typing and keyboard shortcuts and moving to the beginning and end of the line and all that. And so that's all the same. And then you can create a book. When you create the book, literally we preview it. Because like one thing I haven't talked about much is like one of the things that people understand, like they get people, oh, now I get it about Leanpub, is like, I've created a book. Where is the sort of time to value? Well, the value is, oh, my book has been previewed. And so when we create a book now in browser mode, we auto preview it. So like literally before you're done reading the first few paragraphs about like, how's this all working? Like when we create a book, we put some sample content in it, right? And so like the sample content's like, this is a book. Here you are. By the way, like you can edit this text, yada, yada, yada. Are you lost? There's an author quick start, blah, blah, blah. But we're also previewing that book. And so like the book will have been previewed before you can read what's on the screen. And then you can make changes and click a button to preview it and see like, oh, it's literally that easy. So like if you can type, you can write a book on Leanpub. Hey,
Okay.
talk to you guys next week.
Okay.